Hey, everybody. Hey, thanks so much for joining. I think I might be a couple of minutes late. I'm sorry about that. I'm still kind of fiddling around with my setup here, but I want to thank you all for joining. I'm going to look to see who's online so I can say hi to everybody before we go down to the table. Hi, Pam, Jay, and Jeannie. Squeezing me, Lori. Let's see, Linda. Casey Kids 68, Pam Holland, hi, Teresa, Tisha, Barbara, Mary V, so glad Pam V, Becky, Gray, Allie, so glad you guys are all here. We're going to do some practice sessions today. So I hope you enjoy this because I know a lot of us, just want to have a little time to play and practice and try out some new things. So I have some tools that I'm going to share with you today that you've seen maybe kind of in your wandering around, but we'll practice with them a little bit and see how they go. And hopefully we'll get in some really good practice time. I'm going to keep today's session fairly short, hopefully about an hour. We'll see how we feel towards the end of an hour if we want to keep going. But some of the last couple have been a couple of hours and I enjoy them, but they're long. So I don't know if I can keep everybody engaged for 2 hours. So we're going to try to keep this one a little bit short. So I'm going to go ahead and get you down to the table. I want to share a couple things with you, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. I think that might be good. Let me see if I could zoom in a little bit. Okay, that's as close as I can get. Let me try one more thing here. I might have to adjust just a little bit. So I want us to get as close as we can so we can see what we're doing here. So let me try that, and I'll see how this goes. Okay, I think we can make that work. Everybody got a good view? Hi, Miriam. Hi, Sandy. Hi, Lori. Hi, Elizabeth. Mary V. So glad, Sean. Joanne. So glad you guys are all here. Okay, great. Now, before we get started, well, actually, let's talk about what we're going to do. So we are going to practice dotting and swishes and swooshes and walking the dots. And ultimately, after we do a little bit of practice, I would like to go ahead, let me get my camera oriented here, and do this project. This one, I just love this little ornament. Now, I'm doing it on these flat ornaments, and I sold out of these right away, but don't fret. Do it on, like a small canvas. This is a 5x5 canvas. That would be great. Do it on a round ornament. Do it on some cardstock. It doesn't really matter. But this one, the reason I wanted to do the practice session is because this one has just tons of little swishes and swipes. And I wanted to do this project with you because I just think it's so sweet, and I just really love the way this turned out. But you can see, to make the pine bows, we just have tons and tons of swishes and swipes and swooshes. So I wanted to get us some practice in before we do this one. And then next, on this coming Wednesday, we're going to go ahead and do this project. So I hope you're excited about this project because I just really love this one. Okay, good. So that's what we're going to do. Now, before we get started, I wanted to share with you an experience I had, which was actually kind of an unfortunate one. I use, as you all know, these acrylic tools, and I use my nail dotters. And most of you have something probably similar kind of setup. I clean them with alcohol. And yesterday, when I was cleaning my tools, I stood them up in a little cup of alcohol, and I promptly forgot about them because I went upstairs and, goofed off or did whatever, and I forgot about them. When I came back today to look at them, These tools, these little crochet hooks were perfectly fine. What did not survive my overnight were these nail dotters. Look what happened. They frankly just melted and cracked and destroyed my nail dotters. And so that was a definite learning. So these are not obviously similar type of acrylic to what the crochet hooks are. So I wanted to share that with you because if you ever have a tendency like I do to kind of leave things sometimes, these are going to get destroyed. So kind of keep that in mind as you're working with your tools, that we want to take care of them. Don't do what I do, do as I say. So where that's not a very good way to go about it, but I found out the hard way that that does not work. So in today's practice session, we're going to use crochet hooks. You can use, of course, keep in mind when the tools I use are just the ones that I use, right? And you have lots of other different things that you work with. You may just have acrylic rods, or you may have a couple of sets of tools. I have some that I'm trying out now that I ordered from Russia, believe it or not. I ordered a couple of sets that have come in, and I'm going to practice with them. So we all use different kinds of tools. We have different things that we like. I like these. I use them. And then, of course, I use the nail dotters. But in today's session, we're going to work with some round brushes and see how we like them. And I'm going to actually use some larger ones, larger two brushes also. We're also going to work with some silicone brushes. I have done a lot of polymer clay. If you watch some of my earlier videos, you'll actually see that I have used, mine are, some of them are a lot smaller than these. I use these, they're called color shapers, clay shapers. And I have used these for many years in my polymer clay work for sculpting. But really, they are artist brushes as well. They're made for sculpting, but they are also used in the art world for brushes in lieu of brushes. And they come in different firmnesses. I always, for the polymer clay work, got the firm ones, and they have different shapes. So I have a couple of things that we're going to work with today. We're going to work with a bullet type, so we can see how we like doing the dots with this bullet one, which I like. And this one's a little bit less firm. This is a little bit more flexible. And then we're also going to work with, sorry, I didn't open these, a different style of tip. Let me find the one I'm looking for, which is more of a pointy tip. Can you see that okay? It's a conical shape, whereas this is more of like a bullet shape, and this is more of a conical shape, and it has this nice kind of really fine tip. And that is in different sizes, of course. You can get these in different sizes, just like you can get paintbrushes in different sizes. So we're going to work with these a little bit too, to see how we like these, and we'll try them out. I will have some of these in my shop tomorrow. I only ordered a few just so I could try them out. I like them, so I'm going to keep a few in my shop, and if you guys are interested in that, check that out tomorrow, and you might see something that you like. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to work with some brushes. We're going to work with our dotting tools. We're going to work with these silicone brushes. Tell me in the chat what you all work with so we can see what other people are working with. Hi, Corinne, you made it. Good. Karen, good to see you guys. So tell me what kind of tools most of you all are working with. Drill bits. Okay, Corinne, good. Drill bits. I have some drill bits also. I don't have any out that I'm going to work with today, but bottom line is they have a flat bottom, right? So we'll work with that. What else is everybody using? The crochet hooks and nail dotters, Lori. Love the DIY by Dana tools. I'm not sure what those are, so you'll have to, Sean, send me a message or something. That those sound interesting. Acrylic dowels. Okay, daughters and acrylic rods. The DIY Mandala daughters, I have some of those too. Daughters, brushes, hex tool, hooks. So Linda, you're basically using anything you can find. That's great. I actually think that's really good because you can see that I repurposed my polymer clay tools for my dotting work. And you know what? I also, you know what? This is going to bring some of you back. Maybe I'll show you. Somebody in the group was saying that they toll painted. This is my old folk art one-stroke toll painting set of brushes, and I've got most of them still in here. So any of you that toll painted, you guys will recognize some of these things, and we just reuse the tools we have for whatever new craft or art that we're interested in. All right, so I'm going to get set up here, and we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with dots and walking the dots, and I'm going to be using the practice guides that I have. I think these are going to be okay. I don't think they're too shiny. I'm going to be using these practice guides. If you bought them, there's the digital, which are on sale right now, by the way. And I like these. So I like practicing on the plastic, but I also use these small canvases. I use cardstock. This is one of my practice cardstocks that I was working on. So use whatever you have. A tile works good. If you have a tile, I think that's also a good option. So I'm going to go ahead and just use one of these practice sheets, and we'll just work on this. So I think everybody can see that okay. So we're going to start with walking dots, and I'm just going to get some regular craft paint, whatever you have. I use DecoArt Americana paints mostly. And I almost never have to do anything to the paint to get them prepared. But I do think that sometimes particularly when we're doing the swishes and swoops, it is nice to make sure that your paint is pretty fluid. So if some of you are using a paint that's a little stiff, you'll want to maybe consider using some pouring medium or a gloss medium or something like that. I usually don't have to do that, but I thought I would mention it because I think you may find that makes a difference. All right, so I'm just going to get out some of my crochet hook tools here. So we're going to start with dots, and we're going to start with walking the dots. So I've got my tools, and the first thing I'm going to do, let me see if I can get my paint in here too. I kind of want to be like, maybe like this. Okay. I'm going to be using the larger hook just because I want to have a larger dot to work with. So I'm going to get my tool in the paint, and there's a couple of things I want to show you. So do you see this paint, how it's kind of beating up on the bottom? That's what you want to see. If it's got a stiff peak, it's really a little bit too stiff. And so you might want to consider thinning it with a little bit of water. And when I say thinning it with water, you guys, I mean, like, I've got a little water tub here and a little stick, and I'm just going to drop like a little. If I were dropping, I'm just dropping a little bit in. So I'm not pouring anything in. I'm just dropping little drops, and I'll do one, maybe two, and see if that thins my paint out enough. And then I'll go from there. But you're looking to have your paint sort of be able to move a little bit on the bottom of the tool and have that little bit of a bead. And then for nice dots, I find that going up over the bottom of my tool just a teeny little bit, can you see that? It's not much. Just a teeny little bit really gives me enough on the tool. You want to make sure you have enough paint on the tool. And then I'm just going to go straight up and down. And I'm just transferring the paint. I'm not actually stamping it. I'm just transferring it, right? And then you get a nice dot. Can everybody see that okay? Walmart had a run on gloss enamel paints today. All right. So that's a nice dot. Now, it's all about personal preference at this point because I kind of tend to like the little button in the middle, but not everybody likes that. So I need to get a paper towel here, just a sec. Not everybody likes that little button in the middle, and so it's just personal preference for what you like. But if you don't like it, just get one of your nail daughters and you can spread while the paint's wet. You can kind of spread that out. Now, the paint may even kind of spread a little bit itself. It may settle. But if not, you can help it along by doing that. All right. Everybody's good with their first dot, right? You're going to have to keep me going on the chat so I know everyone's kind of keeping up on that. Okay, so now that we've got our dot down, and we'll do some more because we're going to practice walking the dots quite a bit to get a nice practice on that. So there's a couple of things you can do. Now, I don't know if anyone discovered, but these crochet hooks have two ends. One's the crochet end, of course, and the other is the flat end, which is what we primarily use, this flat end. However, I don't know if you know that this is a nice tool also. So I'm just going to practice just a little bit and show you that you can walk the dots with this as well. See how that looks? That's a nice tool, and it's built in. So if you don't have a set of nail daughters, but you have these tools, you kind of have a lot of what you need right there with that little tool set. Okay, so what we're doing, a couple of things I want to share with you on walking the dots. And I want to see, I don't know if I'm close enough. I'm going to try to get down. Steve, will you tell me if you think I'm out of focus or anything when I get down like this? Does that look okay?
That looks okay. It was a little out of focus when you got close.
Is it out of focus right now? I can't really tell. Is it out of focus, you guys? Because I really kind of want it to be you to be able to see okay. Everyone seeing okay? Corinne, yeah, try those crochet hooks. All right, now a lot of us tend, when we're walking the dots and painting, we tend to, at least I do, I should say it that way, I do, tend to orient myself kind of like if I were reading, you know what I mean? Like the top of the book is, this would be the top and this is the bottom. And I kind of tend to want to work like this, right? However, one of the things I've discovered, particularly with dotting, is that that can be difficult. So be sure that when you need to, you are moving your practice sheet or your canvas or your whatever you're using, moving it around so that it makes it easy. And I know that a lot of people struggle, and I struggle with this too, and may or may not get perfection. You know, I give up, frankly, on searching for perfection because well, I just haven't achieved it. So, but a lot of people get frustrated because they walk their dots and then they don't get even dots on the other side. One of the things that I noticed is when I orient myself like this and I walk it around and then I try to come around this way, it's harder for me personally. I'm right-handed. It's harder for me to see where I'm at here for some reason. I don't know why. And my spacing is off. So I like to turn mine around and go the opposite way, if that makes sense. So I might start this way. I don't want to make you dizzy. Start this way and go around, and then turn my sheet or canvas or whatever and start here and go around. Does that make sense to you guys? So it's all about, we're trying to get good spacing. We're trying to get our dots to travel as much as far as they can. I don't always want to go all the way around, right? I really maybe only want to go to about here, but I want my paint to last. It isn't always going to work out that way. but that's kind of what I'm going for, unless I have an intention to just go all the way around. So that's basically walking the dots, but I want to show you a couple of things because we're going to do the other side. I'm re-dipping my tool. I'm going to go to my my nail daughter now. This is my largest nail daughter. And I want to show you that if I start, I've reloaded my tool, right? If I start here, my size of my dots are going to be off, because what I'm doing is each time my tool hits the canvas, I'm transferring paint, right? It's dropping a little bit more paint on the canvas or the sheet. So I start in the middle and I go around one side, I reload and I start here. Of course, this dot is going to be more comparable in size to the first one that you put down, right? Because you almost are releasing the same amount of paint. Does that make sense to everybody what I'm saying? So one of the things that I recommend, and I'm just going to put another dot down. One of the things I do that I recommend, and you'll see this in my videos if you've watched any of the videos, I'm going to start here and I'm going to go around. I'm going to clean off my tool. I'm going to reload it. And I'm going to touch down right on that first dot again to release paint. And then I'm going to go around. Did everyone catch that? And then I have a better chance of getting more even distribution of the paint. I might have been out of frame on that. I'm going to do that again, you guys. I think I've got this so close that I think I was maybe a little out of frame. Let me try that again. So I've got my main dot. Okay. And I'm loading my paint. I'm loading my tool. And I'm going to start in the center and go around one side. I'm going to clean off my tool. I'm going to reload it. And I'm going to hit this center dot again. And I have a better chance of getting a good distribution around each side. Now, it may not ever be perfect, but I have a better chance. One of the other things that happens, if you'll look at this one that I just did, on this side here, I didn't travel quite as far as I would have liked to. So I'm going to get a smaller nail daughter. And I just want to get my tools out here. Get a smaller one, quite a bit smaller, because when I load that paint up, it's going to release more paint than you think. And so I've got a small one here. I'm going to load it. Now, I'm not going to start right here and try to get those dots around. I'm actually going to start more like here and try to get my dots around. So I start sort of midway around where I think about roughly the size. A good, comparable size, and kind of move it around that way. Yeah, thanks. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I'm out of frame, but I hope this is better. Is everyone kind of able to follow along okay? All right, so that's kind of the basic thing about the basic kind of principles, I guess, of walking the dots. And then once you have that down, there's so many possibilities for then how you can decorate, I guess, decorate your dot. Once you get that dot down, I'm kind of doing this upside down. So let's see. There's so many different things you can do. You can combine elements, right? So let's say I want to make this a little bigger. I want to add a crown. So you can do something like that. And then take a next comparable size tool and walk it around. And then you have lots of options for how you finish out your various elements. So let me go to the chat and see what kind of questions you have about walking the dots. Is that enough practice, or shall we do some more? Mary says she messes up her first dot when I dot it a second time, so I have to just do my first dot with a slightly larger tool. Oh, double row dotting. Okay. That's a good one, Lori. All right, let's do that. I'm going to put a little bit more paint out. I don't know if let me see if I can show you something before I put more paint on. I don't know if I can show you this, if you'll see this okay. My paint's not I still have enough paint in my well. One of the things I wanted to share with you is, I don't know if you've noticed this, if you get this, but instead of getting that nice sort of button there, you might get a kind of wrinkled center. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but a kind of wrinkly. It's not forming a nice round center. Usually that's because you don't have enough paint on your tool, or you're stamping versus transferring it. So we're not doing a stamping motion. See how that's stamping? We're not doing that. We're just waiting for the paint to sort of touch the surface and grab onto the surface, and then we can push it down just a little bit. But usually when I'm using these tools, I am not actually touching the surface that I'm painting on. I'm just putting it and pushing it down a little bit so that it transfers. Now with the dotting tools, I am usually touching the surface. That's a little bit different. So I have a little bit more contact with the surface when I'm using my dotting tools. So I'm going to put a little bit more paint in. Okay. Now we have some nice fresh paint. Let me make sure I can stay. Oh, I used a different color this time. Isn't that funny? I have multiple reds on my table. All right. Let's go over here. I want to get it so you aren't distracted here. Okay. All right. So let's go. We're going to go around this one. We're just going to go around it, and then we're going to go and we're going to walk some dots around it. One of the things that I want to share with you is your tool is always going to make a bigger dot than you think, because you're loading it with paint, and that paint is going to spread. So when you're kind of looking at this dot and kind of deciding how you want to decorate it, I kind of tend to sort of look at the size of the tool, just dry fit it a little bit and see if that's going to work. And then when I want to put like a single row of the same size dots, I always start at the top and do a cross. So north, south, east, west. And the reason I do that is to help me with my spacing. So if I know if I can get those first 4 down okay, then I'm probably I'm going to have enough, even spacing around. And then I'll go back in and see how many I think. I think I can get 2 here. And reload. If you want consistent size dots, you're of course reloading your tool each time you go around or each time you place a dot. Okay, so that would be our first row all the way around. So now I'm going to move up a size. Actually, I'll stay with the same size so we can see what that looks like. And I'm going to dot around this one. So I'm going to angle this a little bit because I'm going to be getting my hands in the paint. So let's try this. I'm loading my tool. And I'll start in the center. And I'll work my way around. I'm trying to keep fairly close to the previous row. I'm going to dot it in the center to release some paint. That'll make that one slightly larger. And you've got your second row. And then don't forget, if I'm doing this for demonstration purposes, but if I were doing a painting myself, I likely would have done, let me go back. I would have done this row and then I would have turned and flipped it and done the other side that way. That's just a preference of mine. It just helps me keep them oriented. And now let's go a little bit bigger. Let's stay on the same one. And I'm going to move up to my next, this is a 4mm crochet hook. So you use a comparable size tool to 4mm. I'll put one down. And then I'll get my nail dotter. And I'm saying the nail dotter because that's the next step down for me in the tools that I usually use. And I'm going to go ahead. I have a long ways to travel this, so I might not start walking my dots right away. I might put one down and then walk. Again, always trying to stay pretty close to this previous row. And then I will turn it around. And put another one here. Now, I do try to keep the same number on each side, but sometimes it's not possible. I might run out of paint, or I might not have enough room based on the spacing of some of the other elements that I have. So I may not be able to get the same number of dots. And so let's go back up and keep going on this one. And here we're just playing. We're just creating new designs. And we're just, going kind of to our heart's content, like what is pleasing. You can see how you can create a much larger design element just by adding these rows. Now see what I did here is I did 2 of the larger nail dotter before I started to put my paint down to walk the dots. And that's just because I have more space to travel. And then I will turn it around just because that's easier for me. And isn't that pretty? You can see how you can, with color and pattern and just how your rows, how you make and place your rows, how really pretty that can be. And then you could even keep going. I've moved down to a smaller one of my nail dotters. And I'm just going to walk the dots around that very top one. Hit the center to release some of that paint. And you can do lots of different designs. So what else about walking the dots? Allie wants to know, what would I be doing wrong if mine doesn't curve as nicely around? First, I think it's practice. And then I think what I am trying to do when I'm going around, Allie, is I'm trying to keep, so this is my first row here, right? You see this is my first row. I'm trying to keep my second row. You know how when you're like walking in a straight line, let's do that. You're trying to keep your dots fairly close together. You don't want them to touch, but you want them to sort of be close. So when I'm going around, I'm trying to keep this next row fairly close to the previous row. And that gives me the natural curve, actually. That will keep your curve sort of in the right place if you try to stay as close to the previous row as you can. And it's not always possible. If I were to diagnose this one, I can see it's not, there's some spacing that I might like to have a little bit better. But I think that's what the tip I would give you is just try to keep your rows as close together as possible without touching. So Linda's saying you're not offsetting the 2 rows. What does that mean? I'm not sure I know what that means, Linda, offsetting. Can you explain just a teeny bit? Linda, and Allison said, or Aislinn says, I have so much trouble keeping my lines straight. They tend to curve slightly as I go up. Yeah, I have that problem too. But I think that's like with practice. I'm going to go to a different, I'm going to go to cardstock for just a moment so you might could see this a little easier. I think it's a little bit of practice, but the other thing is I've told the group before, I always am steadying my hand. I think I'm too close to show you, but like if I'm painting, here's my non-painting hand, and I'm sort of resting my painting hand on top of it to steady it. Because if I just go like this, I don't know where I might wander. I'll end up all over the place. So I put my one hand, my non-painting hand down, and I rest my other hand on it to steady it. So it's like this type of emotion. And then I might have a better chance of being straight. Oh, so the question about offsetting it. Okay, so let me try to demonstrate what I think you're asking me and then see if I got you right. So let's just dot this. See, I'm steadying my hand. And I've just walked those dots. I think what you're saying is it like this? Is that what you're saying? And that the answer is no, unless that's the look you're going for, which is actually kind of nice. I like that. I mean, that's an effect, right? That's a nice effect. But when you're doing the circling your dot, walking the dots around, you're not offsetting like that. You're actually, I don't even want to say that you're staying on top of the other dot. You're really not, because they won't be. Like if you look at this one, let's look at this one a little bit. You can see that these dots are on top of each other, right? These row 1, 2, 3, and 4. This next row is not offset, but it's also not right over the previous dot. So it would, I think the goal is to keep your dots close, just like if you were doing any kind of regular dotting. You want to keep your dots fairly close. So they're not, the only relationship to this row is that you're trying to get, you're trying to stay relatively close, but you're not trying to line up the dots. You're not trying to get them in between. You're really just trying to follow that curve around with your dots staying close to the previous row. Does that help or make sense? Give me some feedback and let me know if that's making sense to you all, or if you have any other questions about walking the dots. And there's so many things that you can do. Let me show you on this practice sheet. These are all like variations on walking the dot, just starting out with a larger one and then going, using different tools to graduate down. Here's this one where I did these swishes and then I kind of follow a curve and follow those swishes around. Here's another one where the curve is even steeper. And here's one where I went from the center and then up. And why don't we do one like that? Because I think that's a nice effect. Let me see. So instead of, if this is the top of, top edge of your canvas, instead of going this way, we can just take it and follow it along here. Almost like we're doing sort of like a little cup. Like if you had a flower, these might be the little leaves that go up the side of the flower. And then this is just about halfway up. And then we can curve any way we want just by moving your tool. You can draw it out first with a chalk pencil or something like that for the curve. And so you can walk your dots in lots of different ways. Aislinn tried some of the swishes on the snowflake mug and they looked really nice. Edith, thank you so much. That's so appreciated. I really like having these little dot alongs. Okay, so anything else on walking the dots? What other questions might you have, or techniques that we want to practice with that? Leanne's asking, do you always do dots on grid or pattern lines? No. I have done some free form, and I actually have another one coming up on a clock that I think you guys are going to like, but no. You know what? This is an art form that I think, you really try out a bunch of different things and see how you like them. Some people like the precision of the pattern, the repetitive pattern, like of a traditional mandala, where it's around a center and then it's got a very sort of structured pattern to it. And then other people like the freedom of doing a landscape as an example, or doing some other kind of abstract sort of work, or a more picture oriented. So I think it just depends on what your aesthetic is and what you like and how you want to express yourself. And I would say try them all out, because I think that that's what the fun of it is actually just trying out a bunch of different things. Okay, so I want to try this bullet silicone brush. Let's try this. So we've just been using traditional tools, but there are people that use these silicone brushes for their dotting. And so I'm a little out of range here. So let me see if I could do this. You can change the size just by adding more paint. Nice walking the dots. Yeah, I like the silicone brush. Have any of you guys used this? It seems like it might hold on to a little bit more paint. The only thing that I think is you're going to get a certain size of dot. So these are a little bit larger than maybe some of the dotting tools, but this is a nice tool. I like having this one. But it's going to hold a lot more paint than like these little nail dotters are only going to hold a certain amount of paint. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this to you or not, but even these tiny little nail dotters hold a lot of paint. So kind of keep that in mind when you are trying to fit a space, that you need to consider how much paint that's grabbing and how much paint it's going to release. See, this is even my smallest one, and it or one of my smallest ones, and it still grabs a lot of paint. Were you guys able to see the silicone brush okay? Steve, were people able to see that? Okay, thank you. I want to make sure you can see that because that's actually a nice tool. I like that. How many people have used the silicone brush? Are those yeses an answer to the silicone brush? Oh, Pam, you're trying one out now for the first time. That's good. Okay, so I like that. I like using the silicone brush. I think that's neat. I like using the regular tools. So that's pretty much walking the dots. I think it's a lot of practice and then just a lot of trying different things. And I'll show you in the practice guides, like all the different designs and things you can do with walking the dots. I like this. This is one of my faves right here. So at any rate, lots of different things that you can do with walking the dots. Okay, let's go to swishes, swooshes. comma strokes, we used to call them back in my toll painting days. I'm going to stay on the cardstock because I think that gives us a nice for the camera, and then I will go over to the practice guides in just a moment. But so I'm going to start off showing on just using my nail daughters. These work great for swishes and swipes. I'm going to load it up. I got quite a bit of paint on there. I am going to be touching the surface. So I'm going to go up here. I'm steadying my hand, of course. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to drop that paint and then I'm going to drag it around. Now, as I'm with these nail daughters, it naturally releases the paint. So I'm not lifting up or anything. I'm just dragging it. And you can curve it as much as you need to or want to. And you're doing little drags. I'm going to give you guys a chance to practice that. And let me know how it goes for you. If you've got something like a nail daughter, try your crochet hooks, the other end of your crochet hook. Let's see how that works. I've loaded it up. Not bad. Multi-purpose tools. And again, I'm dragging it across the paper or the surface, touching it down to release a lot of that paint. And then I'm dragging it down. These tools make the automatically, almost automatically decrease the size so that you're getting that swoosh. I'm not having to do anything extra to get that. Hey, Leanne, thanks for joining. We'll see you. Take care. Okay, so do a little bit of practice on that. And then tell me what kind of questions you have on the nail dotting. One of the things, oh, Deborah, good, you've got your crochet hooks. Mary V wants to know, if you wanted a longer line, what would you do? So I think there are limitations with using the crochet hook or the nail daughters and the crochet hooks, but let's practice that a little bit. So this is sort of the normal kind of glide path or the length. You can see these are some of these. If I was using a larger tool, I might get more. You can go back in and try to pull some of that paint down, but I don't know if I like the end there. It's not a sharp enough point really for me. So you can add more paint is all I'm doing to try to get that longer. But I think the tool that is best if you really want to get a longer line is a paintbrush or the silicone brush. So let's look at the paintbrush. These are really teeny, and you don't have to use these small. It depends on the size of the work you're doing. This is a 10/0, very fine. This is 5/0, And then you get up into your larger sizes. This is a size 5. And these are just inexpensive, like synthetic brushes. So let's try a few of these different sizes. 10-0 is a kind of good size that people use. So I'm going to load it up. I'm going to steady my hand. Now with the brush, the difference with the brush, see how my line is a lot longer? My tail is longer. But with the brush, you have to kind of load it up, drop your paint, you're applying pressure, and then you're releasing pressure and lifting it up. And see how you can get a lot more paint loaded on this brush. But see how you got the longer tail? And if I needed to go back in and perfect that a little bit, I could. To load it up it's pretty loaded. Pressure, and then releasing the pressure to the point. So I think a paintbrush is going to give you more length, I guess. And then here's a larger one. I have a little water off to the side. My paint needs to be refreshed in just a moment. So here's a larger one. This is the 5. These are rounds. These are acrylic rounds. And then, let's see. I'm going to put some more paint out here in just a minute. Just got a little dot there, walking the dots in a nice curve. Go back in with my same tool and drag it. And then you have all kinds of possibilities as to how you put these different elements together. Maybe you want to go back in and, put some little dots at the end. Or you want to dot right alongside of it. I mean, there's just so many options. You can dot on top of the swishes. Hey, Corinne, thanks for joining. Max Black, hi. All right, so what questions, or do you want to see any more demonstration with brushes? Because I'm going to move to the silicone brush in just a moment. Okay, Lisa, thanks for dropping in. Oh yeah, you're gonna like the ornament. I think it's so much fun. And it doesn't have to be an ornament, don't forget. It can be, it can be a canvas. I might do one on a canvas before the dot along, just so you can see what that would look like. Okay. Now on the silicone tool, I wanted to show you some different ones. Let's see. As I mentioned earlier, they come in different sizes. So just like brushes, they have different sizes. They're not always numbered, so you have to kind of, you know, this is like a 0. This is a size 0. This one is not numbered. It's quite a bit. Look at the difference. So it just depends on like what kind of size you want to do. You may even want to do, you know, different sizes. You may want to have different sizes. I'm looking for one of my other ones. I don't see it here. So at any rate, my point is that they come in different sizes. So you want to kind of take a look and think about what size you might, what is the most common size or the best size for the kind of work that you do. Maybe if you do teeny, you know, small canvases and things, you want some of the smaller ones. I'm going to have this size will be in the shop and a smaller one, but I don't remember exactly how small. So here's like 3 different sizes. This is a 0. This is a 2. This one's unnumbered. So I'm going to practice with both of these, or these 3. I think you're really going to like the way these perform. So let's see how that looks. I'm going to put some more paint. And I'm going to start with the small one. So it's this is the 0. I'm going to load it with paint. I always steady my hand, of course. And I'm just touching it and pulling it. I am pulling up on it to get that little tail. These seem to hold on to the paint quite well as also. So you get maybe a little longer stroke. All right, so that was a small size. That was size 0. This is size 2. I'm going to load it, and we're going to just do it right next to each other and see what we get. I am releasing just like with the paintbrush. I am pulling up as I get towards the end. So I like these. I think these silicone brushes are nice. Hey, Pam, take care. Linda, take care. All right. We're actually at the hour. I'm just going to do a few with this larger one. And then I think we are going to call it a night. What I like is that it has a nice sharp point. So you can generally get that's like that style, like I'm kind of almost on the side a little bit, is more of the toll paint, traditional toll painting. There. Isn't that pretty? Okay. Let me see what questions the group has. That was walking the dots, swishes, swipes, and some different tools. Oh, I have one. I do have one more. Oh, Jeannie, you like the dotting tool best. They are certainly easy. I'm kind of liking the silicone ones. Pam, those ones from Michaels are fine. Did you get them in the clay section? That's where they have those in the clay section as well as in the art supply section. Yeah, I like the way they look. But I got to tell you, the nail dotters, they work really well too. The thing is, you have some limitations in terms of, how long that glide is. That, but they're easy to work with. That's for sure. I had one other thing that I wanted to show you, because in an upcoming video, you're going to see this, because I'm always like looking at new stuff. These are not new, really. These have been around for a long time, but I wanted to show you that I'm going to start using these in the dot painting a little bit. These are these squeeze bottles. These are the the DecoArt ones, but you can find lots of different ones. And they're actually the writers. They're meant for writing, but I'm using them for lines and dots as well. So the cap, you could fill this bottle, or you could just put the cap right on the 2-ounce bottle of paint. And then with this, you can make dots. And they're going to be more like pearl type dots. Or you can do lines. And you could do a little bit more dimensional swipe. So just some different things, another different tool to consider. I'm going to be using some of these in upcoming projects because I like I like adding the line. I like being able to add some lines. Okay, well, that's our practice session. Any questions? Oh, these, let's see. Joanne, these are at like Hobby Lobby, Michael's, the craft stores, right? The regular craft stores. Usually where the craft paints are, they come usually in a package, like 3. They usually come 3 to a package. And they're just these little squeeze bottles with these writer caps. You can find these. The other thing that I'll be using in upcoming videos that I like too, let me see if I got some here. These are a little bit more expensive. These are the fine line applicators. These are nice though, because these have a really fine tip. Look at this. Look at that. I think this is like, this is 18 gauge. This is an 18 gauge tip. They have 20 gauge tip, and then it's got this little needle, that goes in. If I could get it in, I might not be able to. My dexterity at this moment goes in like that and then keeps it on. And so I'm going to be showing some projects with these too, because I like these as well. But for basic craft work, these are nice. This bottle's nice and squeezy. But you know what I really like about them? I'm not going to usually, unless I have a really big project that for some reason I want to fill this, or I want to put like a medium in it to thin it. Otherwise, I would just take the cap off and put it right on my bottle, my other bottle of, my regular bottle of paint. And so that's what's really nice about those. Take that metal piece out. I didn't do that at first, that little cap that's on there. Otherwise, you'll be disappointed when no paint comes out. Hey, I appreciate all of you guys joining. Oh, let's see. Question, Mary, do the silicone brushes have bristles? Oh, yeah, no, these are a rubber, like it's not actually rubber, it's silicone, but let me show you. There are no bristles. It's just like, here's the bullet one. So see, it's just a solid piece of flexible silicone. No bristles, no anything. It's really smooth. That's the bullet one. I'll have some of those in my shop starting tomorrow. And then the other one let's see, where did it go? I've disappeared it. I don't know what I did. I already have lost the other one. But it's the difference is the end. Like this come in a set, so there's different tools here. But this is the bullet tip, and then the other one was a conical shape, and it's very flexible. But no, it's just a plastic silicone type tip. But it has for the this particular style has a really tight, pointy tip, whereas this one is more bullety. You see how it's more like a bullet, and then this one is really got this style has a really fine point at the end. And then there are other tools in there, so you could see this. You could use this if you wanted to make like lines, kind of thing. What are the questions? Oh, I didn't see the question about fixing mistakes. What was the question? And yes, those caps work on they're DecoArts caps. But what was the question about fixing mistakes? I don't see it. Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I don't know what that one was. So Karen, I'm not sure what I can't see it. So when walking the dots, how do you fix the mistake? Oh, well, this is harder because like I'm going to do it on a canvas because you couldn't do it on cardstock. If you screwed it up messed up on a cardstock, you'd have to like maybe paint over it. So let's say, just do one here. I don't know, maybe you thought those dots were too far apart. Well, the traditional way is to use a Q-tip, and I use these pointier Q-tips. Do you see that they're not the round bud? They're more of a pointy end, and I might even twist it a little bit to get it. I put a teeny little bit of water. It's not drippy, but it's got a little bit of water. And I'm taking the end and I'm rolling it to get off the majority of the paint. And it took off a little bit of my base. Oops. Do you see how I just kind of rolled it up? And then I would go back in and clean it up a little bit. Or I might have to just let it dry and paint over it with whatever the background color was. It's hard because it's wet close to wet, right? Unless you for example, this dry, unless this was really dry, you'd have a hard time getting it up wet so close to wet. But you could use a paintbrush to try to get it up with a little bit of water, just kind of scoop it up like that. Let me do one. I always kind of roll it and twist my brush or Q-tip to get that paint up, get the majority of it off, and then I can go back in and try to get the rest of it off. And then even if I didn't get it perfect, I could still go in with a little bit of paint, the background color paint, and just paint right over it. And that's the way I would have to fix it if it were, you know, wet next to wet. If the other paint was dry, you'd have a little easier time. But if you paint over it, you're going to see that I think you can get generally a pretty good result. and then let that dry. And then you can go over it again. The pointy Q-tips are usually in the beauty section. So wherever like in the beauty section where they have the Q-tips or the makeup sponges and stuff like that, you will find that they have different types of Q-tips or cotton tips. And I like the pointy ones for the artwork just because they give me a little bit more precision. Because I am trying usually to go around a curve or something like that. Hey, you guys. Oh, Jill gets hers at Ulta. Yeah. Perfect. I get mine at Target or Walmart in the beauty section, though, usually. So let me come up and say goodbye to everybody. If I can get my camera up there. Goodness knows what you'll see as I go around my camera here. I am, my husband, Steve, and I are working on trying to get me so I don't have such a low-tech outcome here, a system where I have to jiggle my cameras around, but we're not quite there yet. So I have to do it this crazy way. But anyway, thanks, you guys. I am so glad you joined. I appreciate all of you, every single one of you. We hit 1,000 members today in the Facebook group. So I'm going to do a little project, a special project for the group. And I'll have that out as soon as I can get that out. But thanks all for joining. It was such a pleasure to work with you tonight. And I can't wait for the ornament on Wednesday. So hope to see you all there. Bye-bye.